Pat asked me about Proverbs.
Yeah, I sent him the homework.
I sent Richard the homework. I think you probably did. I asked Kennedy to come. He said he might come.
This is one of my favorite books. It has lots of humor in it.
It does.
Does it? Yeah?
That it does.
You can find humor in pretty much most of the Bible.
You can. God has a good sense of humor. Look what he made.
Look at us. Here, this is for you. It's chapter 11, though. All right, what are we on? 12, not 13. 12. Whew, scared me. We've got 28 verses, and there's 4 of us. So what is that?
That's like
You
7.
want to do a little reading?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let you know.
7? Hey, Richard.
Good evening.
Make that 6 point something.
What?
Do 6. I'll do the last bit.
6 verses?
6 verses each?
You want to start?
Sure, I'll start, I guess. 12. Whoever loves instruction, chapter 12, we're going to do 6 verses each. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions he will condemn. A man is not established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous cannot be moved. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who causes shame is like rottenness in his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. The words of the wicked are lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright will deliver them. No. Question 7, or not question, verse 7.
The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. A man will be commended
Mm-hmm.
according to his wisdom, but he who is of a perverse heart will be despised. Better is the one who is slighted but has a servant than he who honors himself but lacks bread. A righteous man regards the life of his animal, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. He who tills his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he who follows frivolity is devoid of understanding. The wicked covet the catch of evil men, but the root of the righteous yields fruit.
The wicked is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but the righteous will come through trouble. A man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hands will be rendered to him. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. A fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers his shame. He who speaks truth declares righteousness, but a false witness, deceit. There is one who speaks like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health.
It's 19.
Truthful lips will establish forever, but a lying tongue is only for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who desire evil, but counselors of peace have joy. No harm befalls the righteous, but the wicked are filled with trouble. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal faithfully are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaim folly. The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slack hand will be put to forced labor. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad.
All right, Richard.
The righteousness...
We're going to pass it off. We're going to let everybody read.
Yeah, more.
The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduces them. The sloth,
What verse are we on?
27,
27.
12,
Yeah.
12,
Chapter
27.
12, yeah.
The slothful man roasteth not which he took in hunting, but the substance of a diligent man is precious. In the way of righteousness is life, in the pathway thereof there is no death.
All right.
Jim, that's Richard. Richard, that's Jim. And that's Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Okay. Rock on, brother.
All right.
Another question. So on Sunday, the homework wasn't there.
Right. Did you get the email that we?
I guess I'm not on the.
You are.
Email.
Dang it.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting to email you. It's an old email that I don't use.
You should give me your new email that you do use.
Got it.
Can you text it to me?
Yes, I'll do it right now.
Yeah, do.
Thank you.
All right. Question 1. Verse 1. The starting proverb in this chapter is striking. Would you say you are a lover of discipline? If so, what evidence do you have to support that claim? It's also up there, Matt. So, I mean, I know you didn't get a chance to read it, but
Right.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll wing it.
I wasn't very disciplined in my answer.
Neither was I.
I mean, would I say that I'm a lover of discipline? I'd say no, absolutely not. Matter of fact, I don't like it. And it seems like the discipline that I do have has been forced on me.
Yeah.
That's why you don't like it.
And no, actually not.
That's why I don't like it.
But that seems to be what works best for me, is when I'm not given a choice about it. That works better for me. Because if I'm just told to have discipline, I typically don't.
Right.
But when I'm put in a position, a good example, actually, to get back to your point, a good example is being a pastor of a church. The discipline that's required to be a pastor of a church, I would never have had that level of discipline had I not been made a pastor. So it kind of, the two went hand in hand. I sometimes I think that the Lord made me a pastor because he knew I needed the discipline of being a pastor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, with that. Like, as a teacher, the same thing. I'm not all that disciplined, but I'm forced to have to read things I wouldn't normally read,
Yeah.
to prep and prepare for different lessons. And because of it, I'm actually kind of sharp. I'm sharper in certain areas than I would have if I would have chosen a different profession.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
yeah,
Same idea.
yeah.
I did not like discipline when I was younger, because I was constantly in trouble for what my sister did. She knew how to work the system.
It was her fault.
Well, it goes back to, I found out from, now that I'm older and I read some letters that were written and talked to uncles and whatnot, it goes back to my grandparents, and who knows how far back before then. My mother, who was disabled, was the oldest child, and she was expected to be able to run the place. And so she had that on her, and she passed it down to me. So I was the oldest child. Didn't matter what my sister did, it was always going to be my fault if my sister cried,
Yeah.
because I should have done something different, so she didn't.
Good times.
That's what her parents taught her when she put on me, which made me hate discipline.
Well, that
Sounds
would
like
do it.
it sounds like punishment though.
Yeah.
I would make
that's
it.
that's what discipline meant to me. Until just recent, well, I won't say just recently, but till later in my life,
Yeah.
discipline and punishment were synonyms.
Yeah.
Were synonyms.
Yeah.
So, and then I had my heart problem when I was, I had congestive heart failure 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And the last thing they did in the hospital was show me this video that said, from now on, the rest of your life, you're going to have to be consistent about doing these things if you want to live. I go, oh no, consistency is the last thing in the world I want, because it's boring. And I've spent 60-some years of my life avoiding that, and now I just curled up in a little ball in my hospital bed and said, oh, I'm done for. And I was 60-something. But I came out of that, and I followed the rules, and I lost 55 pounds in a year. And
you're still here.
And my heart went from 20% back to 50% ability, and, you know, I did the thing. But what I really learned about discipline was when I was teaching special ed and teaching, I was on the college staff that taught foster parents how to be better foster parents. And I would get these assignments, well, and one of them was boundaries. Tell everybody about why they need boundaries. Ooh, boundaries, that's discipline. No, that's, well, while I was doing that, during the time I was preparing for that lesson, the sixth graders at my school came out on the playground while I was watching my severely handicapped students play on the playground. And they asked my permission to play touch football on the paved asphalt basketball court. And I says, you guys are nuts. I grew up in the desert. We had no grass. I'd give anything for all that grass you have to play on. What's wrong with you? What do you want to, why don't you get over there and play football? Like, oh, no, this is better. I said, why? Number one, we have better traction. The asphalt was better traction than the slippery grass. This is what the sixth graders told me. Number two, we know where the out of bounds is, because there's lines. And number three, we know where the goal line is, so we know when we score a touchdown. All that became my philosophy of education. Provide a classroom where when the kids make an effort, it gets them somewhere. Provide boundaries so that you keep them on task, and they're not just, because their minds will wander really easy. They're not just wandering all over the place and not getting anything done. And then set clear goals that they can accomplish and feel good about.
Discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah. Discipline.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, you read my mind, or, yeah.
I did.
For the longest time, I didn't really understand the difference between like punishment and discipline, but once I became a parent, it became quite apparent that there is a difference. And, you know, because discipline, I feel, comes from, it's like from a loving standpoint, like our Heavenly Father, right? He disciplines us. He doesn't punish us,
Right.
right?
Right.
He has our best in mind.
Well, he allows bad consequences to fall on our heads so we get them, we learn from it.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
That is true.
Plenty of times.
All right. Anybody else for question one?
I would say that in this discipline would be a way of teaching, essentially, from what you guys have used as examples. It's a way of teaching. It's a way of teaching other people not to go down a certain path.
Or yourself? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the 10 Commandments are a set of disciplines. And almost all of them say, thou shalt not. There's a couple of them that say, do this.
Right. That works right into question two then. Love, discipline, or be stupid, and good people get favor. Wait. Love, discipline, or be stupid, and good people get favor. Bad people plan evil. What does it mean to love discipline, and what is favor? If you want me to, I can reword that a little bit, make it make sense. So that's put quotations around love, discipline, or be stupid, which is in verse 1.
You should put a period.
And maybe. And there should be quotations also around good people get favor and bad people plan evil. That would be the second verse. A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions will condemn.
You know, on that question, I took my cue from something that's, of course, common in Proverbs, but you bring it up in question number 4 with the positives contrasted with the negatives. And I know I keep bringing this up every time I'm here on Tuesday night, is that idea of comparative values. You know, what has more value to us spiritually. And what does it mean to love discipline? Well, I think, at least for me, as I get older, it's to recognize its value and prefer it,
Yes.
as opposed to no discipline. You know, for all the things that I do in my life that I want to be good at, whether it's, you know, cycling, working out, playing music, being a pastor, all of these different things require varying levels of discipline. And I've done each of them enough to realize that they all go better with discipline than without discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's more a question of comparative values. What does it mean to love discipline? Well, to recognize its value and prefer it over no discipline. Because I've done plenty of that, and it doesn't get me very far.
Right. It's like jumping in, trying to pretend to be an expert and
Yeah.
doing something and then really hurting yourself and others. And
Yeah.
then
It's funny, I was
having
just talking
nothing but
about that
regrets.
with somebody today. Said in their particular line of work, sometimes it paid just to say yes to whatever you were asked. You know, it's like, can you do electrical? Yes. You know, and then you scramble to find a YouTube video that explains what you're about to do.
Right.
And, you know, and, but rather than say no, because if you say no, then somebody else gets the job.
Right. Yeah.
But that's not necessarily good either, because it takes you twice as long to do the job. Maybe you don't do it very good. Maybe you really make a bigger mess of it than what you would if you just would have said, no, I don't know how to do it, you know. So I like discipline in terms of the comparative value.
Mm-hmm.
I
like
like
that.
discipline because I know that it leads to good outcomes.
Yeah, same idea, same exact
And-
idea.
And I watch Dick Cavett almost every night, just to hear what people were talking about 30, 40, 50 years ago, and how that, and it's almost like the newspaper. But then I listen to it, or I watch the news, and I go, and they're saying, you've got to do this, you can't stop people from doing that, that's so terrible that you're keeping them from being able to do da-da-da-da-da. I'm going, huh, what?
Okay, but what does that have to do with discipline?
Boundaries,
Okay,
and
okay.
not doing things that just feel good, or you think
Yeah.
are good, or when you go through life and you take away all the boundaries, you're like those poor kids. We don't know where the out of bounds is.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely where we're at now.
Yeah.
We're out of bounds.
We're out of
We're-
bounds.
We're out of bounds.
Our society
bounds
just has no boundaries.
But
Well, that's
that
a
one.
fact.
And that's what makes us, that's what the word freedom is taken to mean in any constitutional studies.
Right. No boundaries as
No
well,
boundaries.
instead of well-defined boundaries.
Right.
You know, yeah. It's that comes back to that old, I think it was a book, you know, why does the caged bird sing? You know, because certain songbirds, they only sing when they're caged. If they're out in the wild, they don't sing at all. But you cage them and they sing. Why does the caged bird sing? Well, it's got this level of safety, security, you know, that allows it the freedom. And, you know, that's,
You're taking away their freedom. You're
Yeah.
taking away.
Yeah.
but that's what, as you well know, that's what boundaries do. There's greater freedom in the boundaries. You know, a train that goes off its tracks is a wreck, but if it runs on its track, it's fast and it's efficient, and it moves flawlessly over great, you know, geographical areas. So, you know, there's greater freedom in boundaries than without them. You know,
Every time I hear one of those arguments, I want to say, hey, come talk to my sixth graders.
yeah, they know better.
They
Yeah.
know better.
But and you know this too. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, the greatest freedom of all for us humans is in obedience to God's laws. You know, we obey God's word. There's great freedom there, but mentally, emotionally, we think, okay, obeying laws is not freedom, and yet in God's economy, it is. It's the greatest freedom of all. You know, in Psalm 119, I can't remember what verse. In the NIV, it says, you know, I run in the path of your commands, for you have set my heart free. And it's like obedience is freedom. And when we get that drummed into our heads, then we begin saying, you know, the value of obedience, the value of discipline is greater than the value of disobedience, or, undisciplined, you know.
So in my world
Undisciplined.
travels that I haven't done that much of, but I discovered that for me, that freedom comes from the correct response to opportunity. Everybody gets up, God makes opportunity for us all the time. And that's where our freedom comes from. Not from having no rules or nothing. It comes from the opportunity and how do we respond to it. And that's, if you respond in the right way, you get a positive result and you have more freedom. You respond in the wrong way, you get a negative result, you won't have less freedom.
That works most of the time, doesn't work in some parts of the world. Because in some parts of the world, there's no real freedoms no matter what you do, no matter how you act or respond to the,
I totally disagree with that.
fair
I
enough.
mean, I taught in a school where where all the students had felony convictions, and it was like a minimum security prison.
Yeah.
And I says, you can't get out of here. You can't change a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
Every day, you're going to have a chance to respond to certain opportunities, and if you respond in the right way, you're going to have more freedom, not less.
Yeah.
And they did that, and they loved it.
Yeah, but the freedom, I guess, just to qualify, is spiritual, emotional, mental freedom, if not
It
necessarily
involved
physical.
more than that, because part of the system was, I give you things to do. If you do those things, you get some rewards for it.
Yeah, I guess, I was thinking about a refugee camp that I was in, over on the Burma border, where it didn't matter how they reacted, they were not free. The only freedom they could experience was inside, not outside.
Even,
Just a different scenario,
well, it's,
different scenario.
All right, question 3 then.
looking at it.
These verses 3 and 4, 3 through 4, 3 and 4. These verses speak about lasting the test of time. Some people do not care about the consequences of their actions. What is the takeaway from these verses?
I don't know why verse 4 is in there. Well, I sort of do. It is a very unique verse. It only occurs
It
four
is a very
times
unique verse, that's
in
true.
all of Scripture. There's a phrase, virtuous woman.
Virtuous
only
woman,
occurs
the excellent woman.
Four times
Yep.
in Scripture. Solomon writes it 3 times, probably referring to his mother Bathsheba. Oh, Bathsheba, virtuous woman, oh, yes. And the fourth time, it occurs in the book of Ruth, when Boaz is talking about Ruth, calling her a virtuous woman. Ruth was the great-grandmother of Solomon.
Okay.
I like classical music, and every once in a while I go to the symphony over San Mateo, and I am just awestruck about how each member, and there's maybe 50 or 60, are sticking to the very discipline that only they do. And then when everybody's in harmony, it's beautiful. But if somebody flubs out and it sticks out like a sore thumb, it's amazing. And the beauty of harmony, which comes from discipline, is just so lovely.
That it is. That it is.
Well, I was in high school, I was in the honor band, the All-Stars of Clark County, Las Vegas, high school students. I was number 3 in the county in French horn players. And we'd goof around a lot. And we had way too much fun in band class and writing notes. But when we came to a performance, that was all gone. And we always performed better than our director expected us to.
Yeah.
Because the discipline would come in and we'd nail it.
And when you have 50 or 60, you need
Or 80.
leadership. And that's where I have to tap myself on the shoulder and say, okay, who's my leader?
And
Yep.
Lord, yeah. And that's in this verse too.
Even 6, we need leadership.
Even what?
6? You said 50 or 60? Even
Yeah.
with 6.
Oh,
We need leadership.
Oh, yeah, you need leadership. Okay, in the verse, it says the virtuous woman is the crown to her husband.
Mhm.
And the word husband is not the regular word for husband, but it's a word that means master
Mhm.
or owner. I thought, ooh, God's not being very politically correct here.
It's the
And
same
then I got to
same
thinking
idea with
about it.
Sarah and Abraham, where she said, "He's
Yeah.
my master, not my."
Because
husband.
God made men and women, because it took both to show all of his character. And so both are equally valuable, but somebody has to be the leaders. And we are all female in our relationship to God.
Think about that one time. Yeah.
And we need to recognize that, and that God makes that clear if we pay attention.
So, what do you think? How do you think these two verses are related? They're not completely unrelated. They are near each other, and there is proximity. How would these two verses relate to you?
Well, I finally came to the conclusion that this whole chapter is just a laundry list of truisms about good guys versus bad guys. And so
Okay.
this comes in and it's guys, good guys versus bad guys. So the woman comes in here as something for the men to think about when they're choosing one. That's how
Alright.
this fits into the thing, the scheme, the way I see it.
The great scheme of things.
So then you would say that this laundry list is more of a. It's not just a laundry list, but more of like, we're going to choose these things, and this is an additional choice that is a good choice for you to choose. These are the good choices you could choose. These are the,
Bad
don't be
choices,
stupid,
yeah. Good.
do wise, and don't
Yeah.
be this, do right
this,
things, and then
right.
choose the right wife also.
Yeah,
Exceedingly good wife.
that's
Gotcha.
why I think it's in there.
Okay. Anybody else for question 3?
I keep going back to. I found this out a little bit. I read, the root of the righteous shall not be moved. And then I thought back to chapter 1, and the sinners shall be uprooted from it. So, I thought of this. What is the takeaway from these verses? And I thought, either be wise or be uprooted. That's basically it. Love discipline or be uprooted from everything that God gives. It's as simple as that.
All right. Anybody else got anything?
I was thinking of it in terms of, stability, blessings. When we do things God's way, whatever it is, when we do things God's way, there's always a blessing to be had for it.
A positive outcome.
Yeah, positive outcome, and it even comes back again to question number 4, where not just this chapter, but the majority of Proverbs is those comparisons. This is a better way to do things, and here's what it provides. Here's a worse way of doing things, and here's what you get.
Yeah.
And choose wisely. Choose wisely. Choose stability. Choose blessings. Choose health. Choose all the things that are going to improve your life and the lives of the people around you. Because if you don't, then this is what you get for it.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I spent a whole day with a childhood friend, all day Saturday, which I rarely get an opportunity to do. Those of you that know me, I'm very busy. Rarely do I have a whole day just with me and a good friend. And it was finally had an opportunity to share my faith with him. I've been wanting to do this, but it was finally a moment where it was just the two of us, and it was okay, God, this is the time. And kind of what you're saying, doing things God's way. I was giving him example after example of things that I've been doing since I've become a believer. And I talked about the past when I was doing things my own way. And I didn't succeed, but in a sense I did succeed because I finally
Yeah.
felt that calling to speak the truth, and it felt really powerful and liberating.
Yeah.
And he kept going back to the fact that every time I talked about God doing this in my life or doing this in my friend's life, like taking away this addiction or this and that, he kept saying, in his opinion, it was kind of like a placebo effect. I mean, he kept going back to that. I don't know if you guys have had that
Sure. Sure.
that
You're
reaction
planting
to
the
people.
seed.
They're
Yeah.
saying, yeah, exactly. I'm planting seeds, but his parents were his father was Jewish, so Judaism was somewhat taught at home, not really well. So definitely like talking about Jesus was kind of an area that he didn't feel comfortable talking about.
Well, the placebo effect is real, but it
I
only
agree.
take you so far.
What do you mean by that? I'm not getting that.
Well, by changing a thought, things begin to change, not because there's been any real change, but just because you think that there's a change. It's like, we're gonna give you this pill and it's gonna make you better. And so they give them a pill that's just
We're gonna
nothing.
give you a mask and a shot that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because you'll think that you're safe now.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Ask Kamala Harris right now.
Yeah, and so, it's real, but it doesn't take you that far. The placebo
It's
effect will only
short-term
take you so
gains
far.
maybe,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
like
Four
not
shots.
as far as
Yeah.
I've come, and many of us have come.
Yeah.
It's not random. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
some placebo, but
Well, particularly too, like in your case, and you know this, the placebo effect is only gonna work for certain people and certain things for a limited period of time. But we know a lot of people that have been through the horrors of addiction and have come through alive and living and serving the Lord. And yeah, sure, it's still a struggle, but man, it's not just positive thinking. Positive thinking won't get you there.
Yeah.
It won't take you that far,
I have a friend in heaven. This is Grace. I have a friend in heaven who does for me what I can't do for myself. And there's no placebo in that.
No placebo there. That's the real deal.
That's the real deal. So
Yeah.
you find things that God did for you that you had nothing to do with, that you didn't do for yourself, but they really happened.
Can't deny that.
There's no,
That's right.
Can't deny that. And an unbeliever can't argue with it either, because it's your experience.
well, and you can oftentimes give objective evidence.
Exactly. Exactly.
That makes it even more powerful, but God's
Alright.
reasonable.
Question 4 then. In verses 1 through 5, all these verses are dealing with positives contrasted against negatives. What is the theme here? What is Solomon trying to communicate to us personally and to us as a group?
I think this is going back to what you were saying, Richard, a couple weeks ago. Jewish poetry has like 4 parts. One of them you were talking about was contrast. This sort of creates sort of a black and white sort of thing. It's either you are in the way of people that are blaspheming or are in the way of folly, or you have people who love discipline and are righteous. It's basically as simple as that.
What are you going to choose?
I have a phrase here I wrote down.
I mean,
But it's the opposites that can't both be true at the same time. What's the
Mutually
phrase?
exclusive.
There you go. Say it again.
Mutually exclusive.
Mutually exclusive opposites. That's what this is, a whole list of.
Yeah. You know,
Mutually
a
exclusive
good
opposites.
chunk of Proverbs is like that.
Yeah.
And it's just make good choices. Because I even coming back to when we first started this, there's a father talking to a son. We can't forget that. And it's a father with a lot of experience, a lot of really stupid experience, but it's a father telling his son, don't make some of the mistakes that I've made. Look at this. Look at the difference between these two things. see the consequences before you choose and choose wisely. You know, like that thing that Will had talked about a long time ago on Wednesday night. You know, about once you put your foot on a path, you need to be aware of where that path could potentially lead. You know, you put your foot on this path and you're starting bad and it's not gonna get better. You know, you put your foot on the right path, on the path of righteousness, well, then no matter what happens, you know it's gonna be okay, because it's still the path of righteousness, even when it gets difficult.
Yeah.
And you have to
And
keep
Solomon
taking
had
steps.
a lot of experience.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Well, he says a virtuous woman is hard to find. How do
Yep.
you know that? Because he'd seen so
Because he
many.
had so many that weren't very
And
virtuous.
they were princesses
Yeah,
from
Yeah.
all over the world. The best women in the world came to him,
yeah.
and he got to
Best
know
looking
them.
women.
Know
Well,
the
most
daughters
highly
of
educated.
The kings.
Oh, okay, I
They-
wasn't aware of that. Okay.
They were,
Well, that
I
didn't
mean, if you're a
necessarily make them
princess,
good
but-
women.
But they
So
get
they all
they have
Yeah.
inheritance. They have
Yeah.
heritage. They have background.
Yeah.
They have good gene pools. They have all this stuff.
Yeah.
And out of all these, and he had lots and lots and lots and lots. Out of all these, it was hard to find one that was really virtuous. And the word virtuous means strong. That's the root meaning. It's like an arm. It's the word. that's used
Stream,
for
it's like
army.
strong, but it's also like good in many character traits.
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
It's good
like
in character.
good in
lots-
character.
Lots of good characteristics.
Lots of
That's where we get to Proverbs 31. you
yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah.
Here's some of those good characteristics
Oh,
that
no.
I didn't have in all of my life.
Yeah.
So God brought him all this and gave him these experiences so he could talk to us. So listen,
Yeah.
you're not going to get the chance to do what he got to do.
No, nor would you want to.
Yeah,
No thanks.
I wouldn't want to.
Not me.
Anybody else got anything for a question for?
Just to kind of like piggyback on that, it's like, in addition to learning from Solomon's mistakes, we can learn from each other's mistakes.
Yeah.
If we're
Absolutely.
bold enough to share
Yeah.
some of our follies and stupidity from our past, or possibly even our present. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can learn from each
Absolutely.
other, yeah.
Well, and that's one of the cool things about this as the forum that we have is that we can go through and kind of process his nuggets of wisdom and process them through the lens that we've lived and say, oh yeah, I can see where I should have totally known this 10 years ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and then be able to at least share it with you guys before you go through it or whatever.
So I don't see Solomon as so stupid like
No.
everybody else does.
Who sees Solomon?
I don't think he's stupid, but I do
Well,
think
I
that
don't
there's a
think
lot of
anybody
in groups that are studying Solomon, somebody said something
I've never heard that
tonight
before.
about how you said it yourself. He made so many stupid mistakes.
Yes,
yeah, the
Well,
mistake is wrong.
Right.
but that doesn't make him stupid.
He didn't make stupid mistakes.
Sure
he
he did.
tried out lots of things and found out what the truth was about them.
A lot of stupid mistakes.
But if there's already something that says not to do the thing, and then you do the thing, trying to hope to get a better understanding of why you shouldn't do it.
No, that's not what he did. He never did that.
How do you know?
Because he says
I
he
didn't
did.
meet the guy personally.
Really?
So
Where?
I don't know.
Over and over in Proverbs. I've been through the book 4 times, so.
Oh, so have I. I've never seen that.
Okay.
No,
well,
it's a unique perspective, but that's fine.
and
That's your perspective.
Ecclesiastes has it too.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that the entire Bible is just a book of all the previous mistakes that were made by countless amounts of people. Countless.
Uncountable.
Well, I wouldn't say the whole Bible is, but I would certainly say there's plenty of that in there.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I don't see it that way so much as it's a history of how God redeems us no matter what we do.
Sure. Absolutely.
And he, he shows us what to do, and then he fixes it when we don't.
Sometimes, yeah.
He provides a way for it to be fixed all the time.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus did.
That's the Romans 8,
Mhm.
but he does also let
Genesis 3.
bad
Romans
things happen
8.
and stay there and linger and pursue us. Okay, anyway, question 5 then, in verses 7 through 9. The righteous stand firm with or in their beliefs. They are praised for their smart choices, and though they may have little in worldly glory, they are better than the wicked who are overthrown in time, will be despised and not earn glory in the long run, only have glory in lies. Does this ring true in your experience? Can you think of a time that it was wise to stay, hold, or wait? And I put tables in parentheses to wait tables, because that's what the servant proverb is about. He says, better to be a master of a servant. So I think that's what I meant. I had to reread this a little bit.
Kurt,
Art?
can you move the slide, please? Okay, there you go.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Thanks, man.
Sorry.
Evil will always self-destruct or self-correct. No exceptions.
That's
what
a historical
the book of Proverbs
fact.
is about.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the book of Proverbs
It
is
is
the Bible.
historical.
Certainly rings true in my experience.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
said whenever I have conflict or difficulty. Does it rung true in my experience? Whenever I have conflict or difficulty, yeah.
I just have to remember that when things get so bad. I never thought I would see the day when Americans abandon their freedom for no reason.
We're living in interesting times, that's for sure.
And,
But when you put, can you think of a time, that it was wise to stay, hold, or wait tables? And I put, yeah, especially in ministry. Especially in ministry. And that's my experience not only as a pastor, but on the board of this church and other churches, and just as a Christian who wants to serve. There have been many, many times when it paid great dividends just to hold up and not push so hard, because I pushed hard before and things didn't work. And I found out a lot of times when I sit back and wait just a little bit more, the correct way usually presents itself.
I guess an example that just came to mind just now is when I was foreman of a jury on a drunk driving charge. I had to be gentle with all the people and let everybody have their say,
That's a tough one.
and everybody tell all the reasons they had for whatever it was they thought. And then we finally came down to it. I says, well, it looks like that either what the cop had said happened, or what the defense attorney says happened. Now, looking at the facts, which one could be true, and what do you need to know to be able to tell the difference? And a couple of ladies says, well, if the driver was actually, I set up the scenario, that the defense attorney actually did this defense. He said the guy drove, well, there were a couple of turns. The cop was behind him, had been following him for a long ways, had his red lights on, trying to get him to stop, followed him into this apartment complex, which I knew well because I'd been into it a lot of times. You go in a road, then you turn to the left, then you turn to the right, and you park. And so there were a couple of times when the camera in the car was not on the car he was following. That doesn't mean the policeman couldn't see around the corners, but that's the defense. So the guy says he had, and I forget what he said, 5 or 6 seconds to get out of the car, run in the house, and his buddy to come out of the house and get in the car. So we talked about that. It takes, and the defense attorney was stupid enough to give us measurements so we knew for sure what we were talking about.
That sounds strange.
Yeah. And the guy was drunk. Both of them were drunk.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, the only way it possibly could have happened the way the defense attorney said is if the friend was standing in the parking lot when he came around the corner, and the guy jumped out of the car and ran in the few seconds before the policeman could see him, if there was enough time for that to happen. And then he would have to be standing there. But if he's getting out of the car, then he had to have been in the car the whole time.
Okay,
Oh,
but what
yeah.
does that have to
So-
do with question
so-
number 5?
So here's what it has to do with. So we finally came to the place where they said, okay, we will look and see, is he getting out of the car or not? And that's how I got a verdict. I had to
Okay.
go through all that. But we got a verdict. And it was a fair one.
Brandon, can you explain a little bit at the end what it means by why is to stay, hold, or wait? If
So,
any more
yeah, they're just key words that I picked up in verses 7 through 9. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand or stay. Better is the one who is slighted but has a servant than he who honors himself but lacks bread. So that's wait or wait tables.
Okay.
And the hold is a man will be commended according to his wisdom, but he who is who has a perverse heart will be despised. And so I took that to mean will hold the will hold on to wisdom according to his wisdom. So he's holding on to it. So hold on to wisdom, stay or stand with righteousness, and to serve or wait tables. So I didn't include tables in my original question, but
I thought about this one time when we were about to go to a protest. Remember? When
Probably.
COVID was just starting, and Mom wanted to go to a protest. But we stayed home. And I think what rung true to me was the fact that afterward we just kept getting bugged by constant emails about different things such as the COVID vaccine and the growth of COVID death cases or something like that, and all this dangerousness and stuff, and now all the boundary laws for COVID are now going down, and that's one of the weight things that we had to go through.
If can't remember names. The famous scientists in the middle of the 20th century. Einstein. If Einstein had been alive, this would have never happened, because he was always asking, how does this relate to that? And he would have brought out the relativity and the fact that this is inconsequential. All of this is inconsequential, and there was plenty of evidence.
we should
from the
move on to
very
question
beginning
6.
that that's how it was.
We only have 5 minutes to go over the
I
next
think that-
6
I think
questions.
The dead people might argue that point.
So I'm gonna
Well,
just rip through this one.
15% of the people.
So
who
question
died
6.
during that
Hold on,
I
period.
understand that.
Richard, hold on. Oh, you guys, who cares about COVID? We're not going to talk about that right now. Let's just focus on the questions and try to get done, because we do only have
Indeed.
5 minutes to try to get done. Question 6 in verse 10 through 13. The righteous care for and empathize with those around them. They are industrious and they endure. The wicked, kindness is absent. Fantasy is all, and he is never satisfied with what he has. What are these verses for? Judging ourselves or others, or something else? Do we accept advice easily? Do we think we are always right?
I have trouble admitting mistakes, but it's because I work so hard on trying to find
It's
truth.
because you're always right.
No, it's not.
Well, that's why I have trouble admitting my mistakes, because I'm always right. I don't make
I made a
mistakes.
mistake once. I
Did
thought
you?
it was wrong.
Because you thought you were wrong. Yeah.
I took this second part of that question to definitely be judging ourselves,
Yeah,
and judging ourselves first.
first, for sure.
I think the hardest thing in the world is to judge ourselves, because we're convinced that we're wonderful, you know, and that we are right in our convictions, whatever they may be, about whatever. You know, we always think that we're right, and in the world that we live in today, you know, everybody has all the evidence that they think they need to convince themselves of their viewpoint, whatever it may be. And then everybody's got different viewpoints, so how does anybody determine what is true, what is false, what is right, what is wrong? And so I think the correct judgment begins with yourself,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. I agree with that.
We have in our hands written, God-inspired writings that have been around for 3,500 years, have been peer-reviewed over and over and over, and are still the most valuable things on earth. And not my current proof of it is I have this little handbook of this daily Bible readings in Greek and Hebrew, that's all, and a little bit of German, and no commentary at all. And I wore it out, and I tried to buy a new one, and they wanted $125 for a little paperback.
Oh wow.
Yep. Still valuable.
So it's still the most valuable stuff on earth.
That it is.
So let's go, you want to know the truth? Go to the literature that's true, that's proven to be true over and over and over by millions and billions of people.
My question is, how do I deal with people like that? You know, it's a tough situation when they're demanding their viewpoint. And I emphasize the word demanding. They don't justify it, they demand it. And how do you deal with people like that?
Well, sometimes you can't deal with them, it's the wait and hang on thing and just
Yeah.
get through it. And
Wait and hold. Yeah.
you
So
do.
first and foremost, stand true to your conviction.
Yeah.
I wore a mask less than 2% of the time, the whole
Yeah.
time.
Just stand true to your conviction. Whatever your conviction is, stand
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
Because if there's one thing that this world is lacking, is people who will be consistently true to what they believe.
I agree, yes.
Just my thinking.
I was thinking that this is a fruit check first in us, and then just like you were saying, in us first, but then also in others. It tells us who to associate with, who to not associate with anymore, who to love. I mean, we should love everybody, but it tells us who is a brother, who is a sister, who's not having the same fruit. You know, it's a fruit check. So
Yeah.
And I would basically just agree with it would be judging us. It would be judging us, and we wouldn't accept advice easily, no matter what it was. We would always want to do things our own way. And yes, we always think we're always right most of the time, at least.
we think that you are. Yeah. What do you got?
Yeah, so obviously a big part of my life is teaching and being in a classroom with fifth graders, and it was a rude awakening after 15 years of teaching that a lot of what worked in the past wasn't working this year. And in the beginning, I was kind of being judgy. I'm like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, and I wasn't able to connect with them and like sympathize with them, and let them know, hey, I guess where I'm going with this is like I had to take a couple steps back and kind of put myself in their shoes and kind of use a different approach.
Right.
Rethink things.
Read things out, knowing that a lot of them had essentially they had been like traumatized in many instances, and being in home environments that weren't really healthy, or they were viewing a lot of content online that wasn't healthy.
Right.
So in a sense, they didn't even know there was anything wrong. I mean, I could see it, but they weren't aware of it.
Yeah.
They weren't aware of their dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I kept using this word. You're creating a toxic environment within this classroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's leaving with headaches. Everyone is like angry at each other.
Yeah.
So it really, I had to take a lot of, I I had to use a lot of different approaches to kind of get things back to get back on course, where a classroom needs to be operating in such a way where the teacher's in charge, but I had to like delegate more. I had to like it couldn't be this me versus everyone else. I had to like almost get like allies in a sense, get everyone to kind of buy into doing certain jobs, and then together we were able to kind of bring back the peace. I don't know if that's connected, but I mean that's where my mind goes.
I like it, but I don't envy you for what you have to do every day.
I'm on the front lines every day. In San Bruno. Yeah, and
God bless you, brother.
Year. I know.
What grade?
I'm doing 5th grade this year, so
That's one of the best years.
it can be. Oh, you mean from a perspective of a student?
From the perspective of dealing with kids growing up.
Okay, I mean,
I've had everything from kindergarten through adults.
no, I do enjoy teaching that age group, definitely.
It's either 5th or 6th.
Sixth
either-
grade was good until they sent them to middle school, and then
It's either 5th or 6th grade. It's 5th grade because it's the last grade of primary school, and 6th grade is the first grade of secondary school.
well, when sixth grade was the last year of primary school, it was really good.
That's the way it used to be.
Yeah,
All right.
'cause you're the big
Middle
fish in
school
the
used to be
pond.
7 and 8,
It's,
Because you
not 6, 7, and
reach
8,
some-
just 7 and 8.
You're,
7
you're
and 8.
on the edge
Yeah.
of.
It's actually 8 o'clock now, guys, so I think that we're going to have to...
It talks about the beast.
Kill it.
And taking care of your beast.
I don't know what that means. What are we talking about? What
That's one of the
just
verses.
transpired? Right now?
Verse 10.
I was taking care of your animals, yeah.
Oh.
Okay. And if you don't take care of your animals,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen to your farm?
It'll
It'll get
just
smelly.
die.
It'll just die.
It'll just die.
So, when we don't take care of the people that God's given us to help us through life,
It does say take care of your animals. It also says that it's like
and
worse for
and-
even the mercy of the wicked is not.
it's nothing compared with what
Yeah.
ought to do. So, and that goes back to relationships with women.
Okay,
If
sure.
they are ours and we have some ownership responsibility, then we better take it seriously and do it right and take care of them.
We have to own the responsibility. I think the limit of our ownership of women. I think that there's a sense of
It doesn't make us better than them.
I don't know if it's ownership.
Roles and responsibilities.
Roles and responsibilities.
Roles and responsibilities.
Speaking of 8 o'clock, I've enjoyed this very much, but I need to go.
Yes, sir.
See you in a week.
God
It's
bless
a
you,
pleasure.
friend.
Let me pray us out first, and then you can go. Okay, buddy. Jim. Hey, Jim. I'll pray anyway.
Can't hear.
That's no worries. All right, guys. Let's pray. Thank you, Jesus, for letting us gather. Thank you, God. Oh, so much for everything you're doing in our lives and around us, and just keep us aware and keep our eyes open, keep our hearts open to you, Jesus. Help us do the next right thing.